All right, so we are joined by my friend, partner at Burr Foreman Law Firm in Jackson, graduate of Mississippi College Law School, Mississippi College undergrad, Clinton High School, John Lassiter. We got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. We're in our law public safety career cluster, and we're recording this for our friends at Germantown High School, Ridgeland High School, Madison Central, Rosa Scott, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. And I've also forgot you are a Madison County Schools parent in the Maverick Zone. So I forgot to mention that as well. So I know our friends up at Germantown will love to see this as well.
Go Mavs.
All right. So before we get into what it is you do every day as an attorney, because I think there's a lot of misconception about what it is attorneys do, because we all watch the courtroom dramas. And you even said yourself that you pictured yourself doing that in high school, but it never happens that way. Even though we all love the shows, that's just such a minuscule part of what attorneys do. But take us back, at Clinton High School, Mississippi College School of Law, and how that led to your current career.
Sure. Well, I guess I had two interests growing up. I love stories. I love to read. Mr. Pocket can testify to the fact that I love movies. And so I was always interested in the story and always reading. And then I had a great interest in psychology and why people do things and what makes people tick. And that's a really natural transition to the law. Not to get too much into what I do, but if you have a case, you're always trying to gear your case to whether or not a jury will side with your client. And so it's really important to know people, to know what they like and what they don't like, what will resonate with them and what won't. And so those were two interests I had going back to high school and certainly in college. And it just it was a natural fit for me to try to go into law. I'm a little bit of a talker too, as Mr. Pocket can testify to.
Now, and the interesting thing, you were an English major because, you hear a lot of kids say, all this is, English is stupid, writing is stupid. But if you're going to get into any type of legal field, whether you're an attorney, whether you're paralegal, whether you are a lobbyist, anybody that works in anything legal, you have to be able to write. That skill is so lost on these kids. And, I always say, especially in my business law class, we can haggle all day long about what you think is right or wrong, but if you can't prove it in court, it really doesn't matter. So that having that skill and learning that skill in college and then in law school is just so vital to becoming successful, not only as an attorney, but as a professional.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that in business, the ability to effectively communicate with other people, to get them to quickly and efficiently see what you're saying and what your point is, that's right now, that's the predominant key to being a success in business and in law. And I will tell you, as Chat GPT and some of these AI type components exist, and these chat bots that will be able to help us, even become more efficient. So much of how those systems operate is how you can communicate effectively to it. And what's going to set people apart is their ability to communicate with people and machines in the future. So yes, the more that you can practice, how to write, how to communicate with others, the more you can read, the better off in the long run, you'll be. So absolutely.
Yeah. And then obviously you've been with Burr Foreman quite some time now. But people hear attorney, and like we said, they just think Law and Order, they think JAG, they think all these big dramatic nailing somebody on the witness stand. Yes, you did it, but that's not what you do. You deal with a lot of contracts. You do deal with a lot of civil matters. And yes, you do go to court sometimes, but you're just not going down in there every day, just putting on a show for a jury.
It's funny. You don't. That's just kind of the nature of law now. Is you don't go to court as much as you once did. Certainly in civil. I guess if you're in small claims court or you do, criminal defense work, you'd be in court more often. A lot of what I do, even now, though, is I do litigate, and litigate means essentially fighting over money. Some person says they are owed money under a contract. The other person says no, the contract doesn't say that, and you have a dispute, related to it. I'll depose somebody, and sometimes I'll get the answers I want. A deposition is sort of a court testimony outside of court. So you go and you interview somebody on the record, much like Greg and I are doing here. He's sort of deposing me. But those times in trial where you get somebody and you catch them in a lie, or the jury just has this deep, oh my gosh, those moments. So yeah, they're few and far between. What I do on a daily basis is I prepare my cases. So if there's thousands of pages of documents I have to go through, me and an associate will go through those documents. We'll pick out the ones that are most relevant to what we're trying to say, and we'll try to organize those in a way that tells a story. So much of my day is spent doing that, or emailing the other side about something, or emailing my client about a thought I have, or being on the phone. I'm on the phone a lot. I'd rather text, but people still like phone calls. So I've got to get on the phone and talk and tell people, what's going on, and communicate effectively that way. So, but yeah, my day is not in court every day. I probably go to court once every 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand not only there are multiple facets of law. If you're dealing with an attorney, that doesn't mean you're going to jail. And there's things in your life you're going to have an attorney for. And I think it's important for some of these kids to realize that, because all they see is the negative stuff on television. But if you're going to buy a house, if you're going to get married, if you're going to open a business, if you, heaven forbid, if you have an incident in your family where people are trying to decide who gets what, you're going to need an attorney for that. And that, again, that doesn't mean anybody's going to jail or you're going to get locked up, but that's something you need an expert to deal with in these legal areas.
No doubt. I feel like I've given you this answer before, but I'm sitting in my first year of law school, and I mean, you're learning about 5 or 6 different subjects: property, contracts, sports. I mean, all these things. And I just realized at some point, I was like, man, these things touch every walk of life. If you see, a kid run out in the road and a car slams on brakes, I mean, you're thinking, okay, the brakes worked. So the car manufacturer is not going to be at fault. The driver was paying attention, so they're not at fault. I mean, you just start to look at the world in a different way, and you see that there's a legal impact with everything. But yes, I mean, I have so many friends that went to law school with me and never practiced law. What they did is they began owning their own business, and what they learned and how they were taught. He just taught them how to deal with other people, effectively, and to leverage certain things, and they're more successful in business for it. Legal, I tell you this, even from a humanistic quality, a legal education can just help you in your daily affairs. I mean, being able to just discuss, certain issues with other people. I mean, it spurs curiosity. I mean, it's been a really, really, I would just put my legal education as one of the most valuable things that happened in my life. And lawyers get a bad rap, and certainly there's some lawyers that deserve it. Don't get me wrong. There's, I don't always want to go to dinner with a bunch of other lawyers. Sometimes I want to see non-lawyers, but no, it's been a great career for me, a great career path, and yeah, I just don't want people to have the misconception that you can only practice law in a courtroom as a lawyer. That's not true at all. You can do numerous amounts of things. So.
Yeah, and there's actually attorneys that never go to court. A good friend of mine, she just moved to Arkansas, but she was the general counsel for the Supreme Court of Mississippi. And she was a licensed attorney in the state of Mississippi, and she would literally just go through their contracts and their cases before it ever got to the Supreme Court. She never stepped foot in a courtroom. So if you are not a people person, but you enjoy the law, there could be a path for you in this.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's a good segue, because, especially here in Mississippi, you think attorney, you always think white men. But there is a huge push for diversity in the law field now. So there's a big need for women. There's a big need for minorities, and there is a big need for people that speak multiple languages, because we've seen a lot of cases, especially here in Madison County, where Spanish speaking citizens were being ripped off on contracts. So if you're bilingual, this could be a great field for you. And also in these minority communities need people to represent them.
Yeah, I mean, every trade, every business, is diversity is a benefit in those places, because bringing different experiences and different thoughts to a situation is always going to make for a better situation. People being able to see, and respectfully, now I'm talking about, everybody needs to respect one another, but yeah, my firm has a diversity inclusion initiative. They promote it. They send out, every week or so, a new article and things like that we can read, and certainly we have continuing education on those fronts. But yes, I mean, especially here in Mississippi, the most diverse state in the union. Mississippi College, the school I went to, they have procedures and policies in place to make sure that the law is more inclusive, that legal education is more inclusive, and that ultimately the legal field is more inclusive. So yes, the time is now. Like, I don't think there's ever been a better opportunity for minorities and people that speak multiple languages, to join the field and to promote the law and really make the field better. So yes, I would encourage, that nobody think that this is a club for white men. If that were the case 50 years ago, it's certainly not the case today.
Absolutely. Now, before I get to the questions, we talk about this all the time. We got to talk about it. I know you won't admit it, but you actually had a huge hand in the changing of the state flag during COVID. So to tell us a little bit about that process, because I don't think people understood the economic impact that flag was having on the state of Mississippi, to just a detrimental standpoint, where businesses wouldn't come here, people were boycotting the state, and even though it'd been 100-something years, you did it in a matter of weeks, to have the flag change, which is such a great accomplishment. So take us through that process and how that happened, because it was really interesting.
Thanks, man. It's a long story. It was a short process, but no, I appreciate that. And it seems like a lifetime ago now. I mean, since COVID and everything that we've been through as a state, but no, it was awesome. I'm a sports fan, and Mr. Pocket knows this, that I grew up a sports fan, and that includes, every major sport. College baseball, as y'all know it, it's a bigger deal in Mississippi than it is in some other places, but it's a huge deal here, and it's an economic marker here. And I'd always said I had a big client, a manufacturing client, that ended up building a project in Alabama, and they were a bunch of German folks. And one day I'm sitting at dinner with them in Mobile, Alabama, and I'd asked one of the guys my age that worked for the company. I said, "Well, have you ever been to Mississippi?" And he's like, "I've been twice. One time I drove through Jackson to go to Memphis in May to go to a concert up there. And I stayed the night in Jackson." And he said, "The other time I was coming up to Jackson to look for a potential site for us to put this project." Now, y'all, this project is a $6 billion project. It's in Alabama. Okay, $6 billion with a B. And he said, "Yeah, we came up to Mississippi, and we really liked what we saw. The people were great. But we couldn't put the plant there." And I said, "Well, why not? If every politician you met was telling you what you wanted to hear and the people were great, why couldn't you?" And he said, "Well, we're a German company. We have our own history of being terrible, and we understand what symbols mean." He said, "We understand, think about the swastika and what it means and how terrible that is." He said, "Y'all's flag, I just couldn't have German media grabbing a picture of a swastika and sticking it next to your flag and saying that we're somehow white nationalist or some crazy, group like that. And we wanted to put it in Mississippi because Mississippi doesn't treat minorities fairly." And I thought, oh my gosh, that's not factual, but it's perception. And, the perception is the reality sometimes. And it hurt my heart. It really hurt my heart to hear that story, because do you know how many jobs that cost Mississippians? Just that issue cost Mississippians 2,500 jobs at a $6 billion plant. I mean, that's not even counting the contractors who could have built the plant, the lawyers who could have worked the deal, the real estate folks who would have sold land. I mean, countless jobs. I mean, people that maintain the plant for Mississippi families. So that bothered me, and it resonated with me. And even back in college, we'd had a vote related to the change in the flag that, and Mr. Pocket will remember this, that failed overwhelmingly, which really surprised me. But then so one night I'm thinking about it, and I was thinking, man, we live in a state where a little league baseball team from Grenada, think about this, 8 black kids, 2 white kids, they can't even put the state flag on their lapel if they go to the Little League World Series, without wearing an insignia that basically oppressed their people for 5-6 generations. That's not winning. That's not bringing people together. That is a divisive thing that occurs to Mississippians the moment they're born.
Absolutely.
And so I gave a speech like that at a Leadership Mississippi banquet. And after it was over, somebody came up to me, Mr. Challa, from a hotel owner up in North Mississippi, comes to me and says, "Man, I really enjoyed that speech, but how do we change the flag?" And I told him, I said, the NCAA has a policy right now where we can't host bowl games, college football bowl games, and we can't host NCAA tournament basketball games right now because of our flag. Essentially, the NCAA had a policy where we couldn't, predetermined sites, you know, could not, Mississippi couldn't have predetermined sites that host those type of events. Now, Mr. Poggett could tell you that I think politicians probably thought, well, we can't host those events anyway. We're not big enough. We don't have, the infrastructure or whatever. And I would say to that, that's not true. I mean, if you build it, they will come, and certainly, we have in DeSoto and down on the coast and even in Jackson, we have facilities that can host those type of events, but nobody, wanted to push for it. But you could still host on-campus events. And if you guys know the on-campus playoff type events in college, it's baseball, it's tennis, it's soccer, it's the predominantly white sports, where there's predominantly white participation, where Mississippi could still host those events. And so I was talking to this guy at this reception and thinking, I had this idea years ago. I haven't thought about it in a while. But if college baseball, if the NCAA would make it so we couldn't host college baseball tournaments in Mississippi, I think the flag would change in less than a year. And he said, well, that's a pretty good idea. How do we do it? And I said, I have no idea. So I went home. I even think I talked to Greg about this. And I know I talked to my buddy Bradley Lum about this, about how do we get to the NCAA and talk to them about looking into their policy. And y'all, so I just cold called a bunch of numbers from the website. I just went down the roster and started calling people. And I'd tell them the same story. I'd say, look, I'm from Mississippi, and I know this sounds crazy, but we have this terrible flag. We need to change it. And people down here love college baseball. And they were like, what's college baseball? They got no... You don't understand. We love it down here in Mississippi. If you change the rules so that we can't host college baseball playoff games, then I'm telling you, it will cost millions of dollars to Starkville and Hattiesburg and Oxford. And those politicians will begin those people, those business owners will begin calling politicians, and the politicians will finally have the incentive, to change the flag. And I think the first time I called this person, he thought I was crazy, but he said, I'm going to hook you up with this person in the diversity and inclusion department of the NCAA. And she is a conqueror, man. She will go to bat for this if you can convince her. And y'all, so I stayed up all night writing this letter to her, essentially, which was telling her how the policy that was in effect was bad. It wasn't working. And honestly, it had a discriminatory impact because, if you're a kid from Provine and you play football and you go to play at State, and State makes a bowl game, they play those bowl games in Dallas or Phoenix or, Birmingham, off where you've got to travel. And the NCAA rule made it so that we couldn't, host bowl games right here. Y'all know the Celebration Bowl where it is. I mean, we couldn't host any bowl games like that. And so when I told the NCAA, it was actually having a discriminatory impact because kids could, inner city kids in Jackson could not be exposed to those type of sporting events, which are awesome events. They're events that get you fired up. A lot of people come together for them. And those events would actually encourage youth to participate and to stick with the sports that they're in or whatever, and maybe go on to play and participate as an NCAA athlete. Why would the NCAA want to turn kids off like that and to take the events away from these kids? And man, the NCAA, they bought it hook, line, and sinker. They thought that the policy was archaic. It was ineffectual. They changed it. Y'all, they made an announcement on Juneteenth to ban college baseball tournaments here in Mississippi. And I will tell you that 11 days later, a flag that we'd had for 126 years was changed. So some people would tell you that's coincidence. I would submit to you it was not. That the second that happened, it was like there was a tender, because I really think that the vast majority of Mississippians wanted this flag to change. They just wouldn't get off the sidelines a little bit. But once the NCAA made that announcement on Juneteenth, you saw it. The churches came out and said what they had to say. The Mississippi Economic Council came out and said what they had to say. Colin Hill at Mississippi State, it was amazing what he did on Twitter on that Monday, where he said, look, I'm not going to play football until that flag is changed. And football, as big as college baseball is here, trust me, we all know college football is even bigger. So, all of that the dominoes started to fall, and y'all know that the rest is history. And we got a new flag, and it's a flag that, I immediately, when it got passed, and I don't know which designs y'all loved or whether you're that clued into it. But the second we had a new flag, which was overwhelmingly voted for, as y'all know, I sent it to that client of mine, that German guy that told me that all those years ago, and he gave me a thumbs up back, like basically saying that's awesome, that it was changed. So that was a long story, Mr. Pocket. I'm sorry to go through the entire thing, but it's something I'm quite proud of. Somebody drew a little picture back here behind me, if you can see it, of us basically. I was able to use my experience and my legal acumen to make an argument to the NCAA that made them change their policy. That change policy made the flag change. I'd never had a hand in anything like that before. I'd never thought I was the kind of person that could help, bring a change like that. But here, the one lesson I learned from all that, Greg, is like, if you have an idea, you think it's a good idea, and it's something that needs to be done, you don't sit on it. Like, try it, try it. And, I failed a lot more times than I've been successful, but I always have that story to tell, and I'll always be able to look at the state flag that we have now, and be proud as I look at my kids that they don't have to walk under that old flag when they go to school anymore, and that it's a flag that can be seen as inclusive for all of us. It's a flag that, that Little League team from Grenada, they can put it on their lapel and be proud of it when they go up and win the Little League World Series for the state of Mississippi. So
that's awesome. And again, these kids may think that doesn't affect them, but this is jobs in their future that really have, that flag is going to be an economic developer for the state of Mississippi going forward, not just in the Jackson area, but all over the state. But I do have some questions from the students, and I'll get to as many of these as I can. This first is Amari Williams. He's in 9th grade, and he asked, what are the alternatives in a case before going to court?
Okay. Thanks, Amari. What a great question. There's a lot of opportunity in a case to resolve it outside of court. And a lot of times even contracts will call for, they're called alternative dispute resolutions. You might have heard the term mediation. Mediation is one of my favorite processes that happens in the law, where both sides get together, and they get together in a building and they'll go off to separate rooms. We call that caucusing, but they have a third party come in, like just a normal guy who doesn't know anything about the dispute, guy or girl, and he comes in or she comes in and hears the story from both sides, and then they go to the separate rooms and they tell them, hey, you got a hole in your case. You're going to lose on this point. So if you think you're going to settle for $100,000, you really need to value this case somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. And then that same mediator will go to the other room and say, man, your case is horrible. Like you might have to pay $500,000 if you don't figure this out. And so he works both sides, and essentially the process is built so the sides come together. And really, a lot of people say that if you settle something, because you can agree at that point to say, hey, we're going to pay this, but your claims have to go away, and we want complete peace, and we're all going to move away from each other and go on about our business. That can be a beautiful thing for people to start over again, to settle. But usually when you leave a good settlement means that both sides feel like they didn't quite get what they wanted, and they walk away feeling that way. But that's one process. Arbitration is another. Arbitration is a lot like court. Sometimes contracts say, hey, you need to arbitrate this instead of going to court. Business is like that because, usually an arbitrator has knowledge. Like if it's a construction case, I do a lot of construction work. That's a specialized field. So you need to know a little bit about construction before you haul off and start deciding things. You put a construction case in front of a jury and, man, their eyes glaze over, they're falling asleep. You're talking about the 15th contract or pay app or whatever, and they're falling asleep. So sometimes it's better to have those sort of highly technical disputes in front of somebody who knows the industry, and that can be done in arbitration. The arbitrator, when it's over, he or she issues an award, and that's what you're stuck with it. You can't even take it to court and challenge it most of the time. So, you kind of agree to that process, and then you have to live by it. But those, and then, informally, I mean, you can always, as a lawyer, I think it's a good thing for clients to, when you're talking to the other side, to ask them, hey, is there a possibility of resolving this? And if you'll be honest about your client's case, and, your client will be amenable to it, sometimes you can reach a resolution, just that way without mediation or something like that, just informally by reaching an agreement. There's never a moment where you can't reach an agreement and end a case. And a lot of times that's to the benefit of the client, because they get to quit paying legal fees,
Exactly. This is a good one. This is Christian Mitchell. She's a junior. And she asked, what do you see as the major issues and major trends in the law field today?
Um, you know, technology drives everything, right? I mean, so one trend is that, now, like just like I'm talking to you on Zoom, you can do a deposition by Zoom. It's actually really, really effective. You send your documents to a court reporter, or that's what we call them. They're the people that take everything down. But they'll load it up in a Zoom type program, and then if you're talking to a witness, and you're asking them questions, where were you born? Do you have any family in the area? Do you know about this contract? Those type questions, they answer them, and it's recorded, and so you can use them later on in the trial. And what that does is that saves your client costs. You don't have to travel to Wichita, Kansas to depose somebody, or Charleston, South Carolina, or wherever. You can stay right here and do it. And what that opens up is, I mean, it's just the ability to do your practice nationwide. I mean, if you're not having to travel all the time, and courts will have hearings on Zoom, then that saves everybody the cost, and usually it's a lot quicker. And really, it gives me the ability to attend court hearings everywhere. Now, you have to be licensed in order to practice in those other states, and every state has their own licensing rules. But that's one thing I've certainly noticed, and I think I've already mentioned. The other is that as technology advances, artificial intelligence. I mean, you guys have seen some of this, I'm sure, in recent news. These chatbots. I mean, Chat GPT made 163 on the LSAT. I guess the latest version of it. I mean, that would get you into Vanderbilt Law School. Okay, wow. So I mean, it's incredible to think about those advances. I don't know what it all means, and I'm not here to tell you what that all means for the next 10 years. But I would think that the ability to know computers, to be able to use these machines to make yourself more effective and efficient. I mean, you guys are going to be so equipped for that. You're going to be so much better at that than me and Mr. Pocket here with our old eyes. We can't stand up without our knees creaking and things like that. So y'all will be really well suited for that. And I just think that you always want to be on the cutting edge of tech, because if you're not, it's going to be a built-in advantage for you over the people that came before you, no doubt.
This is an interesting one. This is Nisbick Johnson. He's in 9th grade, and he asked, if you were not, if being an attorney had not worked out, what would you have been?
That's a really great question. My professional basketball career ended when I was probably 11. So that dream ended. There was a time, and this will show you how clueless you can be as a child. But Greg, I really thought that I'd be a professional athlete at one point, which is just hilarious. Then I got to high school, and I couldn't even get any minutes on Clinton's basketball team. So it became really apparent to me that wasn't going to be the case. Other than a professional athlete, if I had it to do over again, I think I would have studied psychology. I'm really interested in how the mind works. I'm really interested in counseling and helping people, and I attend church, and I'm always interested in healing and what makes people go, and what people need in times of hurt. And I just would love to help people and counsel people that way. So I probably would have done that. And it's funny, you still counsel people as a lawyer. I mean, there's definitely time. Now, sometimes my clients don't want to hear what I have to say. When they're really entrenched in a fight and they're just villainizing the other side of it, it's always good to remind people that at the end of the day, we're all humans. We do have commonality, even though we're in this dispute. We want to be healed as we move forward, and have this be an experience that we can learn from.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times people don't want to hear that, but I have a passion for that, and just trying to get people on with their lives and in a better place. So
yeah, and there's people that have psychology degrees that then go on to law school, so that is actually a great combo. I just got 2 more. I hate I can't get to all these because I got some good ones. I just got 2 more from the students. This is DeKayla Williamson. She's one of our cheerleaders here. She's in 9th grade, and she asked, "How do you handle cases when they get tough and you get stressed out?"
I've got 3 young kids at home too, so that is a really great question. I work on multi-million dollar cases sometimes, and I think that what helps me is not so much to focus about what's at stake, but just to take it one day at a time and really try to organize and set out, my practice in a way that if I accomplish these small tasks every day, then I'm moving forward. I used to stress out more as a younger attorney than I do now. I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm dealing with, and I, you're recording this, so my clients will hear this, but at the end of the day, it's just money. And, a lot of times it's somebody else's money. And, I have a tendency to want to be a pleaser, to want to do right by people. I certainly have a responsibility as an attorney to do, what I can, in my best efforts for my client. And, I just try to remember what's important when I'm stressed out. And I think that, it would have served me better as a younger lawyer, as a college student, just to, be organized, work as much as I can, have fun when I can. But at the end of the day, I'm going home to the people that really matter to me. I need to spend time with them while they're young. And that's what really is going to matter. So, the hard case, I'll tell you this too. This is because I just thought of this. I try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. I have young people in my office they're called associates. I'm a partner, and they're smarter than me. And so, I can be codependent sometimes in a case. So I'll bring them in, and we'll spit ideas off each other and try to figure things out. But it's always better to work in a team. You don't want to be isolated. You don't want to be by yourself on things, because that can get pretty lonely. And if you put everything on yourself, I think the reality is a lot of times that a result, sometimes it can be prevented, sometimes it can't. But ultimately, you can't put everything on yourself. You got to share the burden sometimes. You got to share the success too.
Oh, I absolutely. I just got one more from the students. This is Rashawn Smith. He's in 10th grade, and he asked, "What was your biggest motivation to become an attorney?"
Hey, Rashawn, thanks for the question. When I was going through school, I watched the television shows you guys watch, and I saw that there were people that needed legal help, and they weren't going to know the legal process. They were going to be overmatched, in court against some really big company or some really rich person, and it spoke to me that people were going to need help in those situations, and so I went to law school, and it motivated me, to be a lawyer, and I work for a firm now, so sometimes I work for all different types of companies and different types of people. But even now, I carve out some of my time to be there for that type of person, to make sure that I'm giving the same effort for the lesser client in the eyes, I guess, of the world or society, but the underdog, and that it still motivates me when I can get a result for them that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten, by just anybody representing them. And so, I think I went to law school to help people. And at the end of the day, I'm here 20 years into the practice, and I have helped a lot of people over the years. I don't reflect on it too much because I like to look forward, but it's been good. I don't mean to, toot my own horn or whatever, but I've spent a lot of time. But look, I'll tell you this. I mean, being a lawyer is tough. Greg will know, the hours are long, just like teacher hours. He starts a little earlier in the day, and I bet I'm doing it a little bit later in the day. Yeah. But you got to be sitting at your desk sometimes and figure some things out for people. You got to spend more time on it. It requires a lot of thought. It requires a lot of dedication if you're going to do a good job for your clients. And so, I probably, if my wife were here, she'd say, I wish he enjoyed the successes a little more and didn't run to the next thing. But no, it motivates just getting up in the morning and knowing that I'm helping somebody. It's been true since I went to school. So.
Absolutely. Now we're almost out of time, and as always, we thank you for taking some time for us. But
yeah, buddy.
Before we go, tell these kids why the legal field needs them, because we need more young attorneys.
We do, and we also need your vision. We need fresh folks because the law. Here's the thing is, a lot of the lawmakers we have, some of them are lawyers, some of them aren't. Okay, they write these laws, and a lot of times the laws that are on the books, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but man, a lot of times they were written 100 years ago, stuff like that. And there's and this is true about all industries, right? But I mean, your generation, I am really impressed by it. I don't want to be one of those old geezers that's sitting around saying, oh, things aren't what they used to be or whatever. That's just not my way. I mean, everything I see from people your age, shows me that you're the most equipped and resilient bunch that there's ever been. I mean, like, you guys are capable of so much more than I think people give you even credit for. And I just can't wait to see what's in store. Like, I can't wait to see what this world looks like when you guys start entering the job force and start making decisions as political leaders and things like that. We need you. We need your perspective, and we need a group of y'all's generation to come up and say, hey, we're going to do things the right way, and we're going to treat people as people. And that's not to say that there aren't people doing that right now, but I just think that y'all's perspective will be valuable to this state and this world. And so I hope that Greg has my contact information here at work, and you guys, if anybody has any other questions, they want to know a little bit more about how to get involved and how to kind of pave the way to going to law school. If you guys want to, try to intern or something like that, at a summer job, to kind of see what happens at a law firm, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try to put you in a place to do something like that and get you connected to some of the great local institutions that put young people like yourself in those type jobs. But no, we're ready for you. And if I can be a help to you, just let me know. Okay.
Well, we appreciate it. John Lassiter, Burr Foreman, right there in Jackson. And as always, go Cubs.
Go Cubs, go.
All right, see
you.
y'all.